Financial Edge FENXT pre-audit tips, or tips that'll help you make your audit go smoother. I'm Miles Matsumura with Impact Consulting, and I'm based in the state of Hawaii. Okay, so the first question is, what is a VCO or CO? You may have seen it if you're use the database version, you'll see it in the left menu. In the NXT version, it's in the general ledger menu. Well, in Financial Edge 7, the database view, VCO stands for Visual Chart Organizer. In Financial Edge NXT, the web view, it's been shortened to just CO, Chart Organizer. They are the same thing, and which is a template to define the account groups or rows of your financial statements. And I'll go over a few of the benefits of having an audit CO or a chart organizer specifically for your audit. The first benefit is an audit CO allows you to prepare financial statements in the same format as your audited financial statements. It also enables you to download and submit to your auditor general ledger report exports with your accounts grouped and subtotaled in the same order as your audited financial statements. This particular benefit is a real time saver for you. In your typical audit, early in the audit process, the auditor will ask you for your trial balance. And then as they sample accounts, they'll pick out accounts for further examination. They begin to send you a series of requests saying, I need a general ledger export of this account. Maybe a couple hours later, I need a general ledger report for this other account. Give me a general ledger report on your contributions, a general ledger report on your account for pledges. And so you end up over the next couple of weeks of an audit, constantly dropping everything to prepare these general ledger reports. What an audit CO enables you to do is do a mass export of all of the general ledger accounts in your chart of accounts, all in one huge batch. The report will then do all of the grouping and subtotals. All of those subtotals will match your audited financial statement. If you submit this at the same time you submit the trial balance, all of your documents will be consistent. Now, say in a day or two, your auditor comes back to you and says, oh, well, I am looking at your pledges receivable. I need not just the pledge agreements, but I also need a general ledger report for that account. You can then turn and just say to the auditor, oh, you have it already. I've submitted it to you. Go to such and such a file and just search for the account number and you'll find the GL report there. So what this enables you to do, it does take a couple of hours of sitting and while you do the export, but those couple of hours then save you all of the time that you spend dropping everything to prepare specific general ledger reports. Continuing on with the benefits, an audit CO makes it easier to verify that your financial statements, trial balance, and general ledger exports all tie to the same balances and totals. An audit CO makes it easier to reconcile your financial statements with the auditor's draft financials. Typically, you need to be sure that your financial edge balances all match the audited financial statements. And you need to be sure that the start of the year matches. If they don't match, then you know you have some journal entries missing, or the step of reconciling failed to take place. In short, an audit CO makes it easier for both you and your auditor. Here we have an example of a audited financial statement. In this case, the financial statement of activities. You see that this particular one is for the fiscal year 2020 in comparison to 2019. On the left side, you see revenues, you see the various types of revenues and expenses. And this is probably similar to the published financial statements that you have. One question: what determines the order in which the groups appear in the published financial statements? In this example, the groups on the left are sorted in order largest to smallest based on the previous year. Now, if you're working with your default chart of accounts, this is not something that you can accomplish with your default. But if you do create an audit CO, each of the account groups on the left can be moved. The order can be moved to match your published financial statements. And once you accomplish that for both your balance sheet and your income statement, then it becomes easier to do the next step. And you note that, again, we're talking about the fiscal year 2020. On the next screen, I'm going to push this statement of activities to the rear and bring to the front a statement of activities set up within Financial Edge. You see that we have the same column headers, and on the left, we have the same account groups as on the published audited financial statements. The only difference is on the front foreground, it's the report for the next fiscal year 2021 in comparison with 2020. What they both have in common is fiscal year 2020. Once you have your audit CO and your report set up and you run it like this, then the next step becomes easier, and that is reconciling your fiscal 2020 differences. Starting from the top, if we look at the federal grants, you see that on the published financial statement for the previous fiscal year, we have $3.771 million. In Financial Edge, on the other hand, you have $3.755 million. So for some reason, within Financial Edge, you have a shortage of about $16,000. Looking at the next row, program revenues, $570,000 seems to match what we have in Financial Edge. But other grants, the audited statement shows $299,000. Financial Edge shows $315,000. So we have a difference of $16,000 again. That likely means that a federal grant was miscoded as a non-federal grant or other grant. So then what you'd want to do is examine other grants to search for the transaction which caused the federal grant to be misreported. How do you do that? Well, in Financial Edge, both versions, the simple thing to do is rerun the statement of activities, but increase the detail level to the level that shows accounts. So when you do that, it'll open a report like this. Now, in this particular report, I ran it for the 2020 year because that's where the discrepancy takes place. And you can see that we do have the same total. Now, if we're looking for a difference of $16,000, we can ignore the accounts that have balances that are smaller than that. So we'll ignore Department 10 and 20. Departments 30 and 33 do have balances that could contain $16,000. We'll skip the next two, although at some point you should go back and look at Department 40 to see why there's a negative revenue balance there. And Department 50 is also large enough to contain a $16,000 entry. So then from that point, you just run your general ledger for those three accounts, search for the grant that looks like it's federal, and then do the journal entry to reclass that to federal and bring your Financial Edge data in line with your published financial statement. That brings us to the next question. What do you need to create an audit CO? Well, there's basically two documents that you need. The first is easy. It's your most recent audited financial statements. And from your audited financial statements, you get the outline for all of the headers and groups, account groups that appear in the audited statement. You want to duplicate that within Financial Edge. But then that leaves the question, how do you verify which accounts belong into each of those groups? For that, you'll need to ask your auditor for the lead schedule or lead sheet. A lead schedule is a working paper that lists the detailed general ledger accounts comprising a line item in the financial statements, which is going to be that group total. The total on a lead schedule should match the total for the corresponding line item in a client's financial statements. And we'll take a look at an example of your auditor's lead schedule. And by the way, you pay the auditor to do it, so the auditor doesn't mind at all giving you their lead schedule. The lead schedule is usually in the form of Excel, and in the first column, you see a code, and those are codes for groups. In this case, the code R,01 means federal grants. And these all of the accounts in that group. HRSA or HRSA is a federal agency under the Department of Health. USDOE is the Department of Education. So those obviously are federal grants. And the lead sheet will go through your entire chart of accounts and assign every account to a group. And this is what you use to determine, once you use your audited financial to create the outline, you use the auditor's lead schedule to define all of the groups that belong to each group and subgroup. With that information, you can then create an audit CO. To do so, and this is going to be far easier to do in Financial Edge FENXT than it is in the database view. So on this webinar, I'll show you the steps involved in FENXT. You go to your general ledger, down to the third item, chart organizer, your CO. Clicking on that will open a screen that looks like this, your chart organizer. In this case, this organization has 30 COs in the system, some of them created in database view, some of them created in FENXT. Doesn't matter which version you've created them, they'll appear here. But what we want to do is add a new chart organizer. So you go to the add button, and on the right of that button is a down arrow. Clicking on that down arrow will open two options, add template or add template based on defaults. Add template will create a blank template. A template based on defaults will pull in your entire chart of accounts. So you don't want to work with that because then you'd spend all of your time moving accounts around. So it's better to start clean and just add a template. The template would open blank. The only thing in this template is balance sheet and income statement. Nothing else is defined. The first thing you want to do is name that template. And I suggest that you name it something like audit, fiscal year 21 through XX. XX meaning some future fiscal year. This becomes important down the line. The audit CO will enable you to rerun fiscal reports, financial reports from past years in the format that was current at that time. So suppose in 2 years from now, you switch auditors, the auditors rearrange the groups, then you'll need to create or modify your CO to match that auditor's way of presenting your financial statements. But you don't want to lose the format for the previous year. So at that point, you rename this template to fiscal year 21 through 23, save it, then you save a copy, name it audit fiscal year 24-XX, so that from that point on, you follow the new template. In most cases, new auditors tend to follow the previous auditor's work. It's best to give them the previous auditor's lead sheet so that they follow the same outline. If they go and create the new outline, then you'll have to create a new CO to match the new auditor's work. Next to the balance sheet, you see the 3-dot menu, and the same for the income statement. Clicking on that will open two options. Insert a header as a child, insert a detail line as a child. As a child means underneath and indented. Header is the group. Detail will be the accounts that go into that group. You'll always want to start first by building all of your headers and subheaders. And clicking on the first item, insert a header at this level, you create your main headers, current assets, other assets, property and equipment. You do this and go throughout your entire balance sheet and your entire statement of activities to create the main outline. After that, you'll use the second item to create the indents of your outline. So then you create the cash and cash equivalents, grants, prepaid, etc. And you do this throughout your outline for the balance sheet. After you do that for the balance sheet, you do the same thing for the income statement. So first, you work on the outline. Once you've completed working on the outline, then you can start inserting the details on accounts. And you'll generally insert a detail line under this header. And so you see that's inserted. So in this case, we're creating the account detail for cash and cash equivalents group. Clicking on that three-dot menu will then open up the place for you to define the accounts in that group. And you'll note that rather than listing accounts, it'll list just the middle part of the account number, your account code, which makes it a lot easier. And so in this case, account codes 1000 through 1030 are the accounts range that belong to cash and cash equivalents. You continue this for your next header, grants, the next header, prepaid insurance, and continuing on, construction in progress, investment, etc. So what you do is now at this time, this is the time-consuming part. You start defining for each part of your outline all of the accounts that go in them. You want to remember as you go along to save along the way. You don't want to lose any of your work. Keep saving frequently. And when you get to the end of your income statement and you believe that you've gotten all of the accounts entered, the next thing you'll want to do is run a validation report. The validation report will verify that all account codes were included, or if they're not, then it'll list the accounts that you missed, and then you'll need to add them to the groups that they belong into, which may mean under a group, it may have more than one account detail. Some might have 2, 3, or 4 if they're individual accounts or a range of accounts that are missing. Now, I also have the phrasing there. You need to include accounts which are inactive. And you might ask, why would you include inactive accounts? Well, inactive accounts today were at one time active in the past. And it's important to include them because they affect the balances in your balance sheet. Your balance sheet brings balances from the past forward. If you exclude your inactive accounts, the accounts that are inactive today, it'll throw off the balances from the past that then roll forward to the current fiscal year. And so the way to fix that is to be sure that inactive accounts from the past are included in your account definition. Let's see. Sorry that we started late, but we are almost 25 minutes after the hour. You will receive the PDF, and later we'll send you the video of this session so that you can use it as a guide. At this time, we just have 5 minutes left for question and answers. And you can unmute your mic and go ahead if you have any questions for us.
Well, this is Australia here, Australia. Ramos.
Hi, Australia.
Hi, Miles. So good to see you, and seeing also a couple of familiar faces there. Jeannie Dunn, my former colleague.
Hi, Jeannie.
I am, using NXT. Interesting enough, I haven't created any VCOs. But the question that I have, your company, is your company providing this type of support? Like I feel comfortable with running some or creating some VCOs, but since I don't do it on a regular basis, I am sure that at one point I could use some help. And also, even if I knew how to do it, from scratch to perfection, sometimes we don't have the time. So are you providing that type of services?
Yes, we do. I'll tell you a little bit about our company. Impact is primarily a lot of people that were formerly Blackbaud employees. Many of them have had 8, 9, 10 to 15 years of experience there. And what they were motivated to do is to go beyond the level of support that they were able to provide with their company. Others, like myself, were users. I've used Razor's Edge for a dozen years who gained experience. And so really we have a national pool of consultants with a lot of experience in Financial Edge and Razor's Edge. We have another team for the Razor's Edge users, as well as other products that the company has created. We have Grants Edge, NXT, and products really are for grantors or funders. So we do contract our time to help nonprofits do this. I know every single one of you are really busy. And so if you do wish us to assist you with projects like this or to provide ongoing support, that's what we do. Today's webinar, however, was intended to give you some free tips that help you for those who want to do it on their own. Yes, Lily, unmute, yes.
I was just going to say, I need to move on to other things right now, but thank you very much for this information. And I basically said the same thing in the chat. And I look forward to receiving the PDF and the link for the video. So I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yeah, and thank you for coming. Any others?
Miles, hi, it's Jeannie. I'm a former colleague. I call myself a colleague of Australia. I don't use the NXT version. I was trained on the database for various reasons. So is it that much different to, would I just go to like knowledge base articles to figure out how? I've never made a VCO report in my life.
Oh,
so.
okay. Well, there are many things that you'll find in NXT that are easier to accomplish than in the database view. The NXT view is really designed to be easier for users. Now, having said that, there's some things that you can only do in the database view.
Right.
And for example, at the present time, you can only do accounts receivable in the database view. That module isn't yet ported to NXT. And there is a list of the features between both, which ones have been completed for NXT and which have not. My best suggestion on those, you do have the knowledge base articles, but for most clients, you may not know, but if you look on your invoice from Blackbaud, you've paid for Blackbaud University. And so they have courses on some of these specific topics.
Okay, good to know.
But do try to look through the Blackbaud University. If you go to the login page on your main Financial Edge page, there's a green bar on the upper right. You click on that, it does show you the knowledge base, but it also shows you the link to Blackbaud University. And there you'll find classes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Miles. I found it very, very helpful. And one thing that caught my attention, and which I had been mentioning to Jeannie before, was the grouping of, when you try to reconcile the actual published financial statements with the in-house financial statements. And many times the difference comes from the auditors having their own grouping, even though you may give it to them in a specific way. So,
yes,
and having a VCO that mirrors the financials is always like the way to go. But like I say, sometimes even when you know how to do it, you don't have the time. And so we'll be in touch if we need, your help. And
great.
From previous experience, for those who, I don't know if you have had experience with Miles, I have worked with Miles before, and very few people know Blackbaud the way Miles knows it. And I'm very happy to be connected again, Miles.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be in touch, okay?
Just before we go, I do want to let you know about the next webinar. It'll be on May 11th. She's titled her session, Mistake Proof Your Reporting Using Advanced Filters in Your Chart Organizers. It'll be presented by my colleague, Denise Applegran. She's in the Midwest. She'll be presenting this in 2 weeks from now. When I send out the PDF of this presentation to you, I'll include the registration link to the next webinar. And we're out of time. Thank you for your patience. Sorry that we had the delay in starting. If you do want to write to me, I do have my email address there. So I'll give you a moment to just jot it down.
Miles, do you also do support for the student management, the new, the student billing side?
I don't. in our work with Blackbaud, Blackbaud does have us as national partners, but our companies in working with Blackbaud do want us to be certified in those products before we provide support in those products.
Okay.
And so for that reason, at the present time, we have about 50 people. Most of us are certified in Financial Edge or Razor's Edge.
Okay.
And so we can't offer it until we have certified staff for those products.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're now certified also in Razor's Edge?
Yeah, I am not, but my colleague is. For example, Denise worked for years for Blackbaud, and so in her case, she's certified in both. We do
Okay.
have a Financial Edge team, and we have a Razor's Edge team. So
Okay.
we're able to pull in from each other's teams for whatever the client needs.
Good to know for the future. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time.
Okay, and thank you everyone for your time as well. See you at the next webinar.